Live here.
Live!
But we don't have to necessarily know what that means.
What's the someday of blank?
I don't
there's
know
a
that we
reason
want
this story happens now.
Ladies and gentlemen, the movie writes itself. Ooh.
I'm still streaming. How do I stop streaming? No!
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm good. Sorry, everybody, that we are just a tad late. That is my fault.
Unacceptable.
I know. It's totally unacceptable, but I was eating a burger and it was too good for me. So
here's the thing. If any of the excuses start with, I was eating a burger and you're like, yeah, okay, fine.
Yeah, right? Like, it was a good burger. I couldn't just... who wants to just shove a burger
exactly.
down, right?
You don't want to rush a good burger.
Absolutely not. Here we are. Welcome to Ben and Jake Write a Movie that we are going to eventually write. I have completely lost track, by the way, of the episode numbers.
Oh, yeah.
I have no clue what episode this is. So we're gonna get Nate, our PA, to help figure that. Nick, our PA, to help figure. I don't know why I called him Nate. We're gonna get.
You're working with someone called Nate as well.
We are working with someone called Nate. It's very confusing.
Nick, don't get upset.
Nick, we love you.
We know you.
Nicholas is a great human being. He's been helping so much. In fact, I have to say, if you've been on our channel and been noticing all of these amazing little videos that he's been cutting of our pre-writing conversations, they're great. Definitely. I mean, like, he's been doing a really good job. You know, you notice, though, or at least I notice, if you ever watch them, I'm not sure if you have, but I actually have watched a few of them. And I realized, what's that?
I watched one of them. Yeah.
I realized that, we got to watch what we say on here. No, just in the sense, I'm joking, but just in the sense that we're riffing a lot. And I don't want anyone to ever think that the things that we say are gospel. Like we somehow are the people who are spreading this is the way the industry is and you should, totally. This is it.
Well, it's one of the things I think that I'm constantly reminded, which is it William Goldman who said, nobody knows anything?
Right.
Because everyone's experience of this industry is unique. Yeah. And I think that's really worth bearing in mind constantly, is that everybody is going to have their own very unique experiences that can vary wildly.
It's really
wildly.
It's really true. And I hope that our listeners understand that our goal is to help share our experience, share our the way that we do things.
Yes.
And, you know, if that helps, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And if you totally disagree because you've had the opposite experience, that's wonderful too.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely. There's
it's not about quote unquote being right. It's just about, here was what happened with us in this situation. Here are our opinions based on those situations. And honestly, we love, in the same way as we love hearing the way that different people work and write, we constantly enjoy hearing different experiences about how people pitch, for example.
Right.
I know that we pitch very differently from other people.
We've been told so.
We've been told so. We've had success in it. And that's how, you can take that for whatever that means.
Yeah.
You know, you can take it for whatever that means. It's just a way of doing things.
Yeah.
You know?
I do want us to do a 1 hour very just pitch kind of talk.
Yes.
Because it's so, especially as a screenwriter, pitching really is a huge part of it. Even if you're not pitching to studios, you're still going to be pitching. Even if that's not the end game of selling, you're going to probably pitch your idea or your script or your story of some kind to a producer, to a director, to an actor, to somebody. And it is something that you gotta get good at.
Yeah, you gotta get good at it.
You gotta get good at it. It's hard. I know a lot of writers struggle. We have the advantage of being very comfortable in a room. We're both former actors, so I think we're naturally a little dramatic, as I'm sure everyone who's
I don't know what you're talking about.
We like to tell stories. But interestingly, riffing off of what you were saying about everybody's different experiences, there's a viewer of ours, Jacob, who actually wrote a comment 2 weeks ago. I'm going to read it because it's a different experience than ours. And I think, it's astute. So Jacob says, always love the videos. Thanks you, Jacob. You can be paid for shopping agreements too, at least in TV. Just got paid for a couple this last year. But yes, the rest is true. Unlike an option, there's less formal details about future payments and the right to negotiate your own separate fee with the distributor on good faith. Often too, as with us, you can hold the right to approve all attachments, again with good faith. Though this may be true with options as well, sometimes not sure, we were also able to control the rights to all materials developed with them, but they were entitled to their producing fee for 1 year, interestingly enough, if the agreement ended. And we sell the project to a distributor they contacted within the terms of the agreement.
Right.
Basically, we can't wait out the agreement and then sell the project to someone they already talked to right away, which I guess you would probably only do if you were unhappy with the producers. So, first comment, thank you so much, Jacob, for all of that information. I think it's very valuable.
Yeah.
Here's our experience with shopping agreements and with options and with not having agreement in paper at all. So we actually have never been offered to be paid on a shopping agreement, partly because we almost never do them.
It's interesting, isn't it? We're only at the moment, I think for the first time in our now almost 9-year career, talking about doing a shopping agreement with someone.
Correct.
It's
it is.
Never happened.
We've done one once, and it was only the week before we sold the script.
Yes.
And the reason that was done was actually the producer wanted to make sure that he had some security.
Right. Yes.
The good part was exactly what you said in your comment. We were then able to ensure that if the script didn't sell when it was going out the following week, all development materials would revert back to us. And that is a huge benefit of a shopping agreement. It should be in every shopping agreement. If you are trying to debate between an option or shopping agreement, that is one of your huge benefits, is that if you develop under a shopping agreement, your contract should state that you own all of those development materials.
So let's just put that in layman's terms. You have written a script. Producer has given you feedback on that script. That, you know, if it's unclear, that producer at some point might be able to say, well, a bunch of the story ideas are mine, and cause some legal trouble. But if you have it very clearly stated in a shopping agreement document like this, you can say, well, any development materials actually all become ours regardless of what happens.
Yes. Now, here's, I guess, and then again, going back to what I was saying at the beginning, this is just our personal experience. If you are working with a producer that is of a certain caliber, I don't believe, well, one, a shopping agreement, and our lawyer told us this actually not that long ago, a shopping agreement would actually always benefit us more than it actually would the producer, because of the reversion of those rights, and because at the end of the term, you are always free and clear to go off and do whatever you want. However, bringing up with a big-time producer, hey, before we get started, we should really get our lawyers involved and start negotiating a shopping agreement, isn't really classy, I guess. In a sense, it's like, you either trust this producer to be the guy or the girl who is going to champion your movie and who you are going to ride it out long term. And if it doesn't work, you trust that they're big enough and cool enough to go with God. I wish you the best. We tried. It didn't work. I hope it succeeds one day. And so when we've developed material with A-list producers, we generally haven't had any. It's literally a handshake agreement. It's a verbal agreement. And here's why it's never worried me. Number one, these people have a reputation that they need to uphold.
Yes.
And people talk in this business. And as producers start to screw people over, as some have in this town, guess what? You know who those people are, and you don't want to work with them.
And I'll add this too, that when you are repped at, you know, a half decent place, you know, those reps aren't going to be sending other clients' scripts to these people. We have an agent who really dislikes a certain producer, and he is always saying, "Don't go to him. Don't go to him. Don't go to him. He's not good. He's not good."
Yeah.
You know?
And you know, as we've said so many times, this is a relationship business.
Absolutely.
And so those relationships at that high level are really important. Your producer needs your agent relationships. They need your manager relationships. And quite frankly, they need your relationship.
Yeah.
You're a commodity, and you have to remember that you bring value. You bring the ideas. They don't have anything to sell if writers don't let them sell their ideas.
Absolutely.
So when you go into those relationships, you go, this is a relationship I want to have long term. I'm working on in good faith. And that, you know, hopefully, if for some reason this didn't all work out, the relationship is going to be more important than the individual project.
Yes.
And then because you don't have anything as like an option agreement, which is much more binding, you're then able to go out and sell for as much money as you can negotiate for.
Absolutely.
Now, on a smaller producer level, and we're experiencing this right now on the flip side of the coin, where we actually are doing a shopping agreement with a writer, where we will have a shopping agreement with our co-producer. And I think that in this situation, and it's interesting because I probably wouldn't have immediately done the shopping agreement. But when I take a step back and I look at it, I go, if, for example, I'll just pick a giant producer out of the hat of producers. If
Jerry
Bruckheimer goes to Paramount and says, "I've got this script that I'm producing, and and do you want to buy it from me?" Paramount's not going to question whether he really has the right to shop that script. It's fucking Jerry Bruckheimer.
Yeah.
Of course he has the right to shop that script. And if the Paramount wants to buy it, that's what it is.
Yeah.
But if you're producer John Doe and nobody knows who you are, you may, if you're Jake Thornton, Jake and Juliet, and you're going into Paramount and you're saying, "Hey, I've got this script and I'm trying to sell this." Well, you probably will need a document of some kind to say, "Yes, I do have the legal authority to do so."
Yeah.
We entered into a shopping agreement on a book where we have a shopping agreement with an author. And because we're not big-time producers, we wanted that exclusive shopping agreement so that we could then approach other producers and other talent and say, we legitimately have the right to sell this book. No one's going to just trust us.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
You know? So, and then, of course, you know, as far as getting paid, it was interesting with this book. Originally, the agent for this author wanted it to be a paid shopping agreement. We said no. When we talked to our lawyer and when we talked to our manager, they basically said shopping agreements should never be paid. That's not the way they're done. Options are where you get paid. Is it theoretically possible? Could you pay someone for a shopping agreement, or could you get paid?
You can negotiate anything.
You can negotiate anything. But generally speaking, because of the nature of the agreement, because you own everything at the end, all the development materials, because of what it is, you don't. It's a handshake agreement with a piece of paper.
Sure.
You know. But congratulations, Jacob, on getting paid for multiple shopping agreements.
Jacob's got some exciting things going on at the moment.
I wish that we were getting paid on shopping agreements, but that's just not where we are at the moment. Options, on the other hand, people get paid for all the time, and they range all the way up from small producer to full studio option. The Princess started as an option.
It did.
It was a very large payment of an option.
It was a big option.
But interestingly enough, Disney, who owns Fox, who is the business affairs for Fox, said when it comes to a SPEC screenplay, we only do options.
Yeah.
We had never heard of that before. We had never, that was actually our very first option in our career.
It was.
When we sold things to Sony, they were never options. They were always purchases.
Absolutely.
But they said no on this type of project.
Well, again, it was a script, wasn't it? Versus a pitch, I suppose. But can you get an option on you can't get an option on
No, but like Winter's Night wasn't an option.
No, I know, of course. Yeah. But it was because it was a spec, it was a script. I'm saying.
But so was
it could have been an option. Yes.
That's what I'm saying is The Princess was an option, Winter's Night was his full purchase.
Yes.
The Princess, though, when they, we tried to get that to be a full purchase, and they basically were like,
that's not what we don't do that shit here.
And their basic way, I mean, we were able to negotiate to basically make us whole through the course of all the steps that are required. A lot of times when you sell a script, you have the sale price, but then you should be working in at least one step. And a step, for anyone who doesn't know, means a rewrite or a polish.
Yeah.
Or sometimes maybe a treatment, but most of the time it's a rewrite or a polish. And every one of our deals, unfortunately, have been one-step deals. The Guild has been trying for years to get 2 steps included, but they're usually 1 steps. If you sell a spec, your step would be a rewrite. If you sell a pitch, your step is the first draft.
Yeah.
And so there's so many reasons you want that step. And we may have gone over this before, but the biggest reason you want that step is because that's what makes it a Guild project.
That's right.
If you sell, otherwise it's just a copyright transfer.
Right.
It's literally you are just selling your copyright to the studio. Without the employment side of that step, there is no WGA aspect to that sale. There's no health insurance or pension or contributions of any kind. Doesn't apply to your overall accumulation for health insurance. The sale, which is I personally think ridiculous, but that's the way it goes. So anyway, long way around of just saying Jacob has had a different experience than us. I think that's great. We have a friend. So here's another example of that. We have a friend who negotiated a bonus that was unheard of for the current market. And we have been told by our reps, oh, that's impossible. No one will ever go for it. And then his reps were able to negotiate for it.
Yeah.
And the type of bonus was a production bonus versus a credit bonus.
Yes.
When you sell a screenplay, for anyone who doesn't know, usually the bulk of your earnings, the biggest part of your contract will come from your bonus at the end, meaning the movie has all been made. And for most writers, that bonus will be tied to your credit. So
that being what the names are on the screen.
Correct.
Written by, screenplay by, story by, it's tied to those.
So credits, and that's a whole, we could do an hour on credit.
There's a lot of resources out there too.
The WGA decides who gets what credit, and then your contract determines how much money you get for whatever credit you end up getting. But in this case, our friend was able to negotiate his bonus just based on production. So meaning that on first day of principal photography, when they went in to shoot the movie, he got his full bonus. Now, we had, in our situation on The Princess, that was the purchase date. So in a way, we got a bonus for that as well, because we were already paid for our option and our step.
Yeah.
And then the first day of principal photography triggered the purchase of our option.
Yeah.
So we got a nice bonus for that. And then we had our credit bonus.
Right.
But anyway, again, just an example of how everybody's experiences are different.
It can change. And that's used beautifully at 20 minutes exactly on the nose there, Ben.
There you go. Experiences are different. So, speaking of experiences, we had an experience yesterday where we, I think, came to a nice place with the broad concept of our movie. If I remember, I was feeling good about this aspect of the flipping of the trope of what you would expect an Antichrist to be.
Yeah.
Going, the pitch being, well, what if the Antichrist was Sarah Connor living in Portland? Right? Whether that was a waitress, a soccer mom, or a librarian. Right?
Yeah.
Or something else. But what if it was the most unsuspecting person you could imagine?
Yeah.
And then what if the only person that could save humanity was actually a demon from hell?
Yeah, totally.
I mean, both of those things being, now I get it. This is fun.
Yeah, great. And I really like that. Right. But also, for me, what I like about that is it brings it back to something that I liked when we were just first discussing this idea, which is that while there may be another character that joins them later on, it's a two-hander.
Yeah, yes.
And again, like, not that I would consider the Terminator to be a two-hander, but you go, there are these two characters that are your main people.
Right. There's a question that was asked, and I just want to address it because I love when people engage, and so I want to make sure that we do. And this was yesterday. One of our viewers, Chris, asked, "Hey guys, missed the live show, but could you answer the question on the next one?" Well, here we are at the next one, so we're going to answer it for you. If you had spent some time on a log line earlier in development, do you think there would be less bumping up against the current concept? Or is this just a normal part of your writing process?
It's a great question. I mean, here's the thing. Conceptually, while there are while we're playing around with one different character idea, changing the character idea, I do still feel that while we've managed to hone the concept down to perhaps a slightly cleaner idea, it's still everything we've been talking about. While the outline might...
It's focusing in on what is the core, what is the root of
yes,
the idea.
Absolutely right. But if you were to have asked me 2 months ago what this movie's about, it's about, a demon and a woman, who happens to be the Antichrist, trying to stop that thing from happening. Right. I'd have been like, that's the same movie. For me, a logline doesn't do that.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, I hate log lines.
I hate log lines because they seem and they feel artificial. And they absolutely are not the first thing that we ever do. They're the last thing that we ever do.
They're the thing that we do when our agents say, "Hey, can you send us a log line?"
This is a log line because we're sending it to Paramount on Tuesday. And we go, "Oh, fuck, we haven't written a log line."
The problem
so many times.
we've done that a lot of times. Yeah. But the problem, and honestly, I think that a high concept hook pitch is so much more beneficial than a log line.
Yes.
Because a log line sounds stale. They all do.
Yes.
I've never read a log line that made me go, "Oh, that's so exciting."
Yeah.
But I've heard pitches that are like quick that I go, "Oh, that's fucking awesome."
That conversational, that are off the cuff.
And so I think that had we spent the time to do a traditional log line, and again, just for anyone who doesn't know what a log line is, they are usually the thing that is the blurb that might be in a press release, or if your agent is sending a script out, it's a little thing that just says, "This is what this movie is," and they usually sound like,
I mean, it's this. It's this. When a group of armed men take over a house and hold a family hostage on Christmas Eve, the only person who can save the day is Santa Claus.
Right.
And it sounds
one log line, but
it's one log line. We just go, it just sounds like a blah, blah, blah. It sounds like what it is, which is, I've rehearsed this very nicely and neatly, and now I'm going to tell you what it is. Rather than, It's fucking Die Hard with Santa Claus, right?
Right. And I think that, look, people still want them. You still have to do them.
You do.
Why we wait until the end to do them.
Yeah.
And also, the script changes over the course of time. So
absolutely,
I don't know what, the log line 2 weeks ago on this movie would be different than the log line today. Totally. And I think that I would much rather spend my time with what we did the last 2 days going, can we hone in on what makes this concept really fun and unique?
Yes.
Than worry about the kind of structural specificity of a log line.
And it's interesting because, like I said, so in answer to Chris's question, no, I don't think that would have helped. Again, because we wouldn't have done it. Because it's just not the way that we work. But again, had we done that, I think, like you're saying, the log line 2 months ago would have been different to a certain degree today. But again, the log line doesn't have necessarily all the conceptual stuff.
It's funny, in the past, we've sent emails to our reps.
Yeah.
On multiple occasions, because a lot of times when you have reps, you want their input on your ideas. And if you have a lot of ideas and you're trying to choose between them on what you should write, sometimes it's, you pay these people, you may as well get their input.
Yep.
Maybe they've heard of 6 other things out in the market that's exactly like the thing that you're writing. So that is another time that we will do log lines. But I got to be honest, I think it's like the worst way to get their opinion on something. I agree. I hate sending those emails. I would so much rather, if it wasn't so goddamn hard to get them all on the phone. At the moment, oh, woe is us. We have I think 6 people on our team I think there's about 6 people on our team.
Yeah.
And I guess if you include Jen, so it's 5 people on our team. But to get all 5 of them on a conference call at the same time to pitch them 5 ideas over the course of what is normally really they have about half an hour.
It's not necessarily practical.
It's just not practical. So you end up sending log lines, and then if they don't get something or they don't like something and you really want to push it, you can always get them on the phone afterwards and kind of clarify what you were trying to say.
Yeah.
But that is a time when you want to go, here's the log line. But also you might say underneath it, and here's what it is. It is Die Hard with Santa Claus. And there is a way to kind of use that skill to help at that stage. In this particular podcast, because we didn't ask our reps about it at all, we wouldn't have done a log line to ask them. So again, it's just not something we would have done. But anyway, Chris, I hope that answers your question. And anyone else, if you have questions, please
ask. Please ask us questions,
and we will do our best to address them.
We will. Just coming back then to this slight conceptual shift, and we will talk a little bit more today about what the impact is on our story and how the movie starts and whether we start the movie in the same way or not. The key takeaway, I think, for me is tonally, this might be a little more fun, but still be dealing with demons and stuff like that. Not funny, but fun.
I think fun is a good way of putting it. That's what we always say.
Yeah.
I think there's a version of this, and I haven't seen Violent Night yet, but is there a tonal comp to that? You saw it, you loved it, or is that?
I loved it. I love Violent Night. Yeah. I don't know. It's a really good. Here's the thing: Violent Night is inherently going to be funny.
Yeah, well, it's Santa Claus kicking ass. Although Winter's Night wasn't funny.
But Winter's Night wasn't funny.
And that was Santa Claus kicking ass.
But it's because of actually, interestingly, he wasn't yet Santa Claus in Winter's Night.
True, he was just a Viking.
No, whereas David Harbour is Santa Claus.
By the way, for everyone watching, they stole our Santa Claus. We did the Viking Santa first. Okay, I want credit for that.
You see, spoiler alert, you see a little kind of flashback to Santa before he was Santa Claus in this. And
they do a flashback.
It's not huge, but you go, oh, I get it.
And is there a magical nature to it too?
No, there's not.
Oh, interesting.
It's much more like
true Viking. It's like, oh, all of a sudden he's the Norseman.
He's the Norseman. Yeah, totally. So, but there is a real comedic quality to it.
Yeah. So
I laughed my ass off through it because it's absurd.
Right.
And it plays into that absurdity. I don't think we're playing into absurdity quite so
much.
No,
I don't. I agree.
Yeah. So,
but I will say,
I don't know if that's the right comp.
If there's a way for us to not be Constantine, and I think that the tone is how we differentiate ourselves from Constantine.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We've talked in the past, and it's not this either, because again, you go, that was absurd. But and you talked about this, I think it was yesterday when we were talking about the Hank character, the Woody Harrelson character, but the Zombieland had an element of something, but again, Zombieland's a fucking comedy. It's just
I wasn't talking about it in reference to this. It was a different project of ours.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, but I think figuring out I feel like even Terminator and Terminator 2 are probably too serious.
They are. They are
what we're doing.
Completely serious. There's moments of.
There's like one or two jokes
likeness in Terminator 2.
Yeah,
brief
like 2 jokes. Yeah,
but where you go, but they're born out of character.
Oh yeah,
it's complete. Like you laugh when Arnie picks up the baby because that's a funny image. It's not funny it's not because we're trying to be funny.
It's not a joke. It's not a
joke.
Yeah. I think that the humor. See, that is interesting what you just said there, and I think we should focus in that direction. Any humor in this movie should be organically born out of character. And I think there will be more in this than Terminator 2 because of who our characters are.
Yes.
But I don't think that we go to the point of, hey, what's the joke we can do here? Or what's the comedic beat that we do here? It's more, oh, well, she's a librarian and we get a demon fight in a book in a library. And the Bible is one of the books in the library.
Yeah, something like that.
And you can have a fun moment there, but it's born out of the fact that it's demons in a library, and not like, oh, we're gonna have like
not snakes on a plane. It's demons in a library.
Demons in a library.
So I think that's kind of worth bearing in mind, and I think tonally it's going to be one of these projects where we're
constantly walking the line.
And those are always difficult.
They're hard
because they just are. Because you're going, is that too much? Is that too fucking dark?
I mean, all of our scripts tend to be that way, don't they? It's like
they do.
Winter's Night. This is just a funny kind of flashback memory to the draft that we sold of Winter's Night. We thought was totally like light, like Pirates of the Caribbean 4 quadrant.
Yes, totally.
When they bought it, they wanted to lighten it up a little bit. And so we go back and we're reading through it, and we're like, there's a moment in here where a teenager shoots a guy with a crossbow through the neck, like through the throat.
We specified that.
And we literally, it was like the bolt pierces him through the throat. And we were this is not tonally right for this movie.
Not right. Yeah, totally. Totally. It's interesting. I know we mention Hellboy from time to time. Yeah. Hellboy's interesting because Hellboy is big and bold.
Yes.
Scary at points. Absolutely. Moments of like that villain is freaky as all hell, but kind of nuts.
Yeah, I guess. I never was scared during Hellboy. Maybe scary for like an 8-year-old, but not scary for an adult.
But it took itself seriously.
Yes.
Like the guy, like Rasputin at the beginning, it's like
the monsters were real and dangerous and could kill.
The monsters were real and dangerous. There were real threats. And yet there was absolutely elements of fun in that script.
Oh God,
you know, Ron Perlman, just his performance and delivery as that particular larger than life character.
Yeah,
but it was good. It was grounded. It was emotional. You know, I really liked the first Hellboy. I like the first two Hellboys actually. They're pretty.
Yeah,
I didn't see the David Harbour one.
Me neither.
Yeah,
along with most people.
Yeah, I know. It's gonna be my British Kit Kat.
Yeah. British Kit Kat.
Yeah,
British Kit Kats on air. So knowing what we're wanting to do, and knowing that the flip side of the only person who can save humanity is a demon who doesn't want to be bad anymore. Also, I just do think just slightly shifts. Only in the outline, it's more about the way these scenes are going to be written than what the scenes actually are. It actually shifts the writing of the moments more than the moments themselves, which is an interesting thing as well. Just to be aware of that when you're in the outlining process, it's really is we're putting down the map for where this movie is going to go.
Agreed.
The writing of the scenes is going to determine the tone. Absolutely. The writing of the scenes is going to determine what that character feels like in the movie.
Completely.
Now, we had talked yesterday about structurally your concern about the prologue. I'm not 100% sold on.
I'm going to come back to it because, you know, I said to our viewers yesterday, go and watch this movie by Jonathan Stokes on his series Raising the Stakes on YouTube. And I actually went back and watched it. And it was all about exposition and backstory. And his belief is the best version of exposition and backstory. Don't do exposition and backstory. But if it's really important, wait for as long as possible. We talked about this briefly this morning. Wait for as long as possible before you do it. So I suppose kind of coming to that, I go, is what happens in the prologue important for the events of our movie? Now, you might say, well, yes, it is, because it's going to establish the relationship between our demon and Zod. It's going to establish her past. It's going to establish the fact that she was a certain way and now isn't. But I'm going to counter that by saying I'm having an imaginary conversation with you. I just know that you're going to say that because we've been working together for a long time.
And I'm right.
But here's the thing.
Your version of me is already right.
Right. It's great. It's great being so right. But again, I would ask the question, does that have to happen then? And is that the best place for it? Whereas, you know, for example, you know, again, just going back to examples of, say, The Terminator, or again, even something like Midnight Run, you know, in The Terminator, you don't start in the future. You don't start with, you know, John being, Kyle Reese being given the mission by John Connor and seeing all of that and starting with all of that scene work.
Yes, you do. You start in the future in The Terminator.
But not in any meaningful big sense. You don't see that stuff.
But you get words over black, and you do see.
You get words over black.
You do see the future.
Right, but you're not getting backstory to characters, which is what I'm really talking about.
Yeah,
which is what it feels like we're doing in this. And again, in something like Midnight Run, you don't start with, you know, a big exposition dump about the main character and the fact that he's no longer a cop who works in Vegas because he was. That stuff comes out organically through the story, right. You know, and it's actually more satisfying when it does come out through the story, because you're going, oh, I'm learning about these people as time goes on. There are questions.
Did you feel that way about Hellboy?
The audience is asking that are then revealed over the course of the story. So anyway, that would be my.
Did you feel that way about Hellboy?
Great question. Great question. With something like Hellboy, I feel that in that particular version, let's play it through. How would I have felt if The movie had begun without the prologue of Professor Broom leading the Allied troops on this little island in Scotland to get. Imagine that was gone. And instead, I was with my guy, my human protagonist, my human character in that story, arriving for work at this new place and not knowing exactly what that was, and finding that there was this fucking demon there. Would I have found that more satisfying? I might argue, yes, I might have, actually, interestingly enough, and gone, let me learn what this was and how this thing happened through him rather than already knowing it as the audience.
But here's the problem, is that you're going to have the question from that moment forward, what the fuck is this? What is going on? Why is this demon here? How did they get here?
Yeah.
So then you have the challenge of, you're either just never going to explain it, which is going to leave, personally, I would say, your audience going, what the fuck? Or you're going to have to jump back and either do a flashback, which I would argue is worse.
Yeah, I dislike.
Or you're going to have to do it through dialogue, which is even worse.
But again,
is
it bad in Terminator? Is it bad when Kyle Reese explains to Sarah Connor what's happened?
But Terminator is not a good example, because you do have an opening prologue and you have a giant flashback.
But you don't.
You have in fact, you have multiple flashbacks. You're wrong, Jake. There is a scene before he even meets Sarah where he falls asleep in the fucking car and you literally go to the future and see him in the future, essentially getting the mission. Like, you have multiple moments that are explaining.
I mean, he doesn't get the mission in that moment. He doesn't. He's remembering his life. He's remembering his life as part of the resistance in the future. And so
we know that he's on this. But we know that he's on this mission because we've had words over black that said that the fight for the future is going to happen tonight.
We don't know what that means. We don't know.
But that's like one detail. You're not thinking over all of it. Imagine if you got rid of all of those details, all of that exposition, take out every single flashback, and you just start with this guy showing up naked and just looking in phone books.
I would argue that that's potentially a better version of Terminator.
James Cameron would disagree. And considering he's the most profitable filmmaker of all time,
James Cameron would disagree.
Oh, definitely, because you've got to go watch Avatar. 150,000% he would disagree. If anything, James Cameron has become more expositional in the beginning and bigger with prologues than he was back then.
Sure.
There's the first half an hour, as I said, of the new Avatar is literally going previously on Avatar. So there is an aspect of going, we're not doing Midnight Run where they're just people.
No, of course.
We're doing a world that we don't know. There's no, like, Lord of the Rings starts with a massive prologue.
It does.
Because it needs to set up things that we as the audience don't understand yet, because then we don't have to be, we can go along for the ride. We can have, and that doesn't mean you have to give away everything. Doesn't mean that you can't have twists.
Sure.
But there is information, because you're setting up a new world that needs to be understood earlier in the movie. Now, does it have to be the very first scene of the movie? No, it doesn't. I don't think it has to be the very first scene of the movie. But is it better to do it through visuals than two characters talking? Like, imagine if, like, the way you learned about Sauron in Lord of the Rings was Gandalf and Frodo talking about the old, well, remember, Frodo, there was this guy named Sauron. He's got this big eye. Trust me, it's evil. And he killed all these people in this giant war.
Sure.
I mean, like, it'd be so unsatisfying.
Yeah, sure.
I think that it's not a solid, again, it's not a solid rule. It just depends on the kind of movie or the kind of story you're telling.
But also, again, I would ask the question, what does the audience need to know at the beginning to enjoy this movie from a point of going, oh, I understand what's going on? Or can you not fully understand? Again, I'll talk about a movie we talk about a lot too, The Matrix. Now, The Matrix starts with something fantastic going on. You see a woman, Trinity, fight in an incredible way, leap across a building. You're going, what is going on? But you're asking the question, and then she's in a phone booth,
but
and then it's smashed.
I'll pause you because I know most people know what happens in The Matrix.
But I just want to continue for a second, if you let me. You then go and you're with Neo. You don't know what exactly is going on, but you're starting to ask these questions.
But that's what the movie's about. That movie is intentionally about the fact that people don't know what's going on. Like, the whole premise is that Neo lives in a world he thinks is real, and it's not. So having that uncovering of the mystery through Neo's eyes makes sense. Our demon doesn't not know that there's demons out there.
Right, but again, it's coming back to the conversation we were having yesterday about what is the most exciting way to go into this story, and is that right that we're telling it from the demon's perspective? Currently, we start off in 1920s Chicago. We then cut to modern day. We are following her. She's our protagonist for all intents and purposes in this current version of the movie. But is that part of the difficulty in terms of concept of going? If we explain everything, then is it? I don't know. I'm just kind of like,
I don't know. I think
idea of it. Anyway,
I think that, as you were saying earlier, it's like there's a version of this movie that feels like we're heading towards, which is more of a two-hander, but that still means the demon is a protagonist.
Yes, it does.
They're just one of two.
Yeah.
And our other protagonist does not have the same level of history, specificity, world building, fantasy. I don't need to explain what a librarian is to people.
That's right.
But I do fucking need to explain what a demon is to people. Because we're not doing a demon that people know. In fact, there's so many versions of demons and so many versions of hell that I don't know. And especially the version that we're doing, the fact that she's living among humans, the fact that she is going on this emotional journey, I would have no context to that whatsoever. I would literally just be seeing a woman running a gift shop and then going to work and being at home and then taking a weird bath. Like, there'd be no...
Yeah, I don't think any of that stuff would be in this story.
But but there's no reason, I don't see any reason to take any of that stuff out. Like, I don't understand why we would, I guess, like, burn down the forest in that way. I think of another movie we reference a lot and talk about a lot, I love, which is Highlander. Now, you don't necessarily, could you have started that movie with Connor McLeod, the antique stealer, who's just there and then, meets a reporter? I mean, you get into, like, there's so much information that you need in order to understand the rest of that story, because the story actually is infused by who he is. The story only happens because of who he is. So our Charlize demon, if she wasn't a renegade demon who left the life, who didn't want to be bad anymore, then this story wouldn't happen this way.
Sure. But, referencing Highlander, I'm not sure fully supports your argument, because Highlander is half told in flashbacks whereby you don't fully know. It's not, you don't explain everything in the first scene. Connor McLeod doesn't die in the first scene and is resurrected. That happens over the course of the
second scene. It happens in the second scene. It literally is like you flash back to Scotland right after he drives out of the parking garage.
And he dies in the second scene?
He goes into battle.
It was him and his girlfriend having a nice.
Well, it's a nice big long flashback where he's there. They're in a bar. Da, 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 then they go off to battle, and the Kurgan is there. And he kills him. We don't know that he's necessarily resurrected right away.
Sure, but what I mean is
that he was there and now he's here. I have enough information.
And what are you doing? You're asking questions. You're going, what's going on? How come he's there and he's there? Is this a time travel movie? What's happening?
Right, but there's questions that can still be asked without not having anything. I mean, what I'm hearing you argue for is to literally cut any explanation of any of who Charlize is or was, and then to somehow learn that on the run.
Yeah.
And my feeling would be that is actually robbing the audience of being able to fully appreciate Charlize's emotional journey and what she's dealing with in the beginning for what ultimately is going to be an unpaid off gag, because anyone who's watched the trailer knows that she's not a fucking person.
Right.
So you're not paying it off by going, oh, I didn't know that was coming.
It's difficult though, isn't it? Because, we talk about the difference between what you're doing in the script versus, well, there'll be a trailer. And ultimately, I do always feel that it's what should be on the page and the person reading its experience should be. It's not like I don't send someone a trailer before reading a script. I send them a script, and they experience.
People actually do now. Some people actually do send lookbooks.
We don't. It's okay.
Whatnot. But it does happen, and there are versions where we say it all the time when you're writing. You're going, well, you don't need to necessarily hide this because it's not going to be hidden. Anyways, it's not a real payoff. It's not a real mystery. Like maybe for that read, but then what? So you're going to get rewritten because someone's going to go, well, we don't need to hold this. Why don't we make sure that people understand what's going on? So then we'll let somebody else write the prologue. I mean, you don't want to do that either.
Oh,
and I feel like what you lose, and maybe our version of the prologue might not be the best version. I'm totally down with revisiting the idea that maybe it's not specific enough to the information that we want people to know, but we lose the emotional aspect of understanding and being with Charlize and her journey, and then the stakes that are involved with that, and who she is, the fact that look, there's lots of questions that you're asking. You're going, wait a minute.
There are.
That woman who I think is a demon.
Yeah.
Just was in.
I'm not sure what she is. And I'm not sure what I'm watching.
And that's the thing. There's still questions, but here's what I do know. I do know that she ran away from the people that she was with. I do know that she is somehow superpowered and clearly immortal because she's still here.
She was working with people who were doing bad things. We don't know why, and fought against them because she didn't want to do that.
And then now and so I have enough of a connection to who she is, to then when she's with this boyfriend and kid and trying to do that, I'm actually asking the question, why is she doing this?
She's not. Here's the thing. In that opening prologue, as we have it at the moment, she doesn't stop this Zod character and say, I won't do this anymore, Zod. I've been working as a demon in hell for the last 9 centuries, and I won't do all this stuff to try and raise the Antichrist with you anymore. What happens is she says, I'm not doing this anymore. And they have a fight and she escapes. And we go, like, there are questions there. I'm not denying that. I was just coming to the point of going, is this necessary backstory? But perhaps the answer is yes. And that's okay too. Like, it's okay to keep asking these questions of, is this, if we are going in this direction?
Yeah. I think asking the question is totally valid. I think that's important. I mean, there's a version of this movie where there's words on black or voiceover that says the demons from hell have been attempting to raise the Antichrist for thousands of years and have been unsuccessful.
Right.
I mean, like, where we really tell the audience or the reader, look, this is what this movie's about.
Yeah.
Now, and and in that version, I wouldn't start with the prologue. In that version, I would go words on black. They've been trying to raise the Antichrist, but has been unsuccessful until now.
Right.
And then I would cut to Charlize, and I'd be thinking, so is she the Antichrist? And then I'd see her get in a bath full of fucking steaming water, and I go, oh shit, maybe she is the Antichrist. And then when we reveal that actually it's Susie Homemaker that's the Antichrist, I get a really nice flip on the reveal. And then when Zod shows up, I'd probably go into a flashback of some kind to show why Charlize isn't living with the other demons and what that was all about. Or maybe when Charlize is in the bathtub, you do a Kyle Reese of it all, where she's dreaming the demon. But in that, I at least have enough with those words on black to understand the world that we're in. We're in a world where demons exist and they're trying to do bad shit.
In a world where
demons exist. And honestly, I think that's really the most important thing that prologue gives us, is that demons are among us and that they just tried to blow up a building. From Charlize's aspect, what it gives us is that we see the backstory and the exposition of her leaving that life. But I agree with you. I don't have to know that at that moment to appreciate the rest of her story. But the fact that I do at least know that she is something special gives me just a little more connection to what she's going on here. So if you were going to start without that, I would again go very quickly into showing how different she is current day.
Right.
And I wouldn't hold that back too much, because I want to understand the conflict that is happening. I mean, otherwise, like, I don't know why she's having any conflict with these people, with whether it's the chatty neighbor or the boyfriend or the fact when she feels the end. Like, I want to know that there's some kind of internal struggle going on here. And I think that there's a version where we leave more things open and more questions to be answered, but still give something.
Yeah.
And then there's the version where we like it is, but maybe tweak still to make it more specific to understanding that what they're doing is trying. I mean, what I will say, what this conversation has brought forth to me, is that while that opening scene may tell me about Charlize, what it doesn't tell me about is what the demons are trying to do. And so it isn't fully connected to the plot of this movie.
Yeah.
And so
that's what I was asking earlier, is what in this scene, what in this opening prologue do we need to know that we cannot know?
What they're doing, though, interestingly enough, is connected to the plot of the movie. We just don't know it based on the way that we wrote it. So if there was a way to infuse that prologue with, maybe this will be the thing that brings out the Antichrist, but really fucking bad dialogue.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Here's the thing. You have that opening scene when they're trying to do that thing, Charlize rebels. Rest of the movie starts to happen. And it's like, so what do you do? And again, bad dialogue. It's not this, but the sentiment is, for centuries, demons have been fucking with mankind. Any bad thing that happens 9 times out of 10, it's us. Why? We're trying to sway human emotion so that ultimately this being is born, Right. And then at that point, the audience would go, because the audience is smart. Oh, that's what they were doing at the beginning. That's the scene that I saw then. They were trying to make that thing happen that now she's just explaining.
Yeah.
So I think that's
that would be the way that you still keep it somewhat ambiguous at the beginning. Absolutely. But again, you could do both. You could do words over black as well. Instead of the until now, you could just go, for thousands of years, demons have been attempting to raise the Antichrist because they're the only one who can da 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 da. I mean, I don't love words over black.
I don't honestly, in this version, I don't think it's necessary. As we were creating it, you know, I liked creating an element of mystery.
Yeah, and there's quite a bit. I don't actually understand fully what I just saw, but what I do know is Charlize isn't human.
Yes.
And she was there in the 20s.
Yeah. And she's here.
And she's here now.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yes. Sure. All right. Well, look, let's keep that as it is then. And we'll jump maybe into some outlining stuff tomorrow. Are we going to be working tomorrow? Are we doing this tomorrow? Because I know you need tomorrow afternoon off. So,
sure. Well, we can talk about that offline so that we don't bore people. But if you're not here tomorrow, I think we'll probably be here just a little bit earlier.
Great, sounds good.
Yeah, I think we'll just do an earlier stream. So unfortunately, I can't tell everybody exactly when it will be, but catch us when you see your alert. Even better reason to subscribe to YouTube, our YouTube channel. Because
hit the bell. There's a bell. There's the bell. There's a bell.
By the way, we have 187 subscribers on YouTube, which I'm very appreciative of. I want to see that at 200.
Let's get to 200 before the end of January.
Right? Just because I know we have a lot of viewers on Facebook, which is awesome. But hey, you Facebook viewers, just go subscribe to our YouTube channel too. All right.
There it is.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you being with us in our banter. We'll get to actually some going back into the document tomorrow for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye.